The Universal Manifestation Theory. Hi, please take a few minutes to watch this video. It might give you an answer to all of your questions, to all problems you encounter on your spiritual or on your professional quest. Discover the real power of your thoughts in only a few minutes. If you want to read the whole theory, download the ebook The Missing Link to the Power of Creation. The Missing Link to the Power of Creation is a book written by Tim Impens from Belgium and might explain the true nature of our human species, the real power of our thoughts, and the missing link to the power of creation, or what others call the law of attraction. This video shows you a short version of the theory. This theory is based on logic, strong facts, and is supported by one of Einstein's most popular theories. But this theory is easy to read, it's not written in a scientific language, neither does it include any mathematical equations or information that's hard to understand. Everyone's able to understand this knowledge because it's based on things we encounter in our daily life. It's all about our own thinking process and our personal emotion shifts. Einstein has proven that when a particle is cut into two pieces, both particles stay connected to each other no matter what the distance between both particles is. When separated, both particles move into opposite directions and act into opposite ways. This means that everything in the entire universe is connected to each other because all energy follows the same universal laws, goes by the same universal principles, is structured in the same balanced way, and everything's created from the same divided source, energy itself. This is accepted by mainstream science. We're all parts created by the Big Bang. This means that everything around us, all physical and non-physical things, including ourselves, our mind, our thoughts and our emotions are part of this perfect balanced structure of life. It's all part of the divided source that created two opposite forms of energy. All principles, universal laws, characteristics and structure of the entire universe are also hidden in every cell of our human body. We are just another piece of the gigantic puzzle. Each piece of this puzzle is part of the whole and also has an opposite. It's actually easy to see opposite forms of energy. We see it everywhere, even in the smallest forms of energy, for example in the form of a positive or negative thought, in the form of a good or bad emotion, in the form of life and death itself, in warm and cold, in health and sickness, in being awake or being asleep, in night and day, in success and failure, and so on. Just like the particle split by Albert Einstein, everything's already part of the whole, but everything can still be split into two opposite forms of energy, even if it's already divided. This might seem weird and hard to understand, but it's how the entire universe is formed. We just have to recognize it by opening our eyes. So for the whole to exist, the opposite must also exist. To be or not to be, William Shakespeare. As long as there's something, it can be divided into two opposite forms of energy. Once we understand this principle, and once we understand that everything already has an opposite form of energy, that's when we can ask the most important questions. If we create something new with our mind and thoughts, do we also create the opposite? If we want to be successful, do we also create failure on our journey? When we plan something to work out just fine, at what moment in time will it work out just fine? Does it have to go wrong before we can succeed? What humanity doesn't realize is that humans have the same creative force as nature itself, the power of creation, only in another form. Life itself creates things, whether it's flowers or trees. Life does its thing in a perfect balanced way, creating new things out of nowhere. But we also have this power to create brand new things by our thoughts and manifest them into our physical reality. Everything around us is invented by a single or by multiple thoughts, created by the human mind. If we draw a picture on a piece of paper, that drawing didn't exist in the universe before the drawing was made. We have to realize that we create new things by just deciding to do so, by thinking, believing, and by taking the steps that are needed to create something. But again, are we also creating an opposite form of energy, just like life creates everything in a balanced way? Why wouldn't certain universal principles affect us? It would be naive to say that we were special or that we were an exception, a mistake made by nature itself. That's not the case. We are just a smaller piece of the divine structure of the universe that's always moving and always creating new things. It's always vibrating. But if everything in the universe is already divided by the Big Bang, this means that everything already has an opposite. At the same time, new things cannot be created without the creation of the opposite. The Big Bang can be compared to the experiment of splitting a particle done by Einstein. It created two opposite forms of energy in a perfect balanced way. Short and simple, everything in life already has an opposite. What's created new will also have an opposite. Next part. Why should this be important to us and how can we use this information? That's what you're about to find out. But first, we take another look at the universal structure of life. In space, we can clearly see driving forces. These are forces that make sure the two opposite forms of energy meet again at a certain point in time. Gravity is such a force. It's for example the force that allows planets to rotate around the sun, a force that creates a cycle or a pattern. Most of us think that these cycles are static, while in reality they're not. A driving force does create a visible and clear cycle or pattern, but this doesn't mean that this movement can't be disturbed by other forces, by a bigger force, element or object that interferes. A cycle or a pattern can change form when a larger force comes in between, just like an asteroid's path changes when it passes close to a planet. Another example. If humanity is responsible for an oil leak in the ocean, it's humanity who's disturbing the natural cycle of life in the ocean, at least until it's restored. This is important because the human species also has a driving force and also a form of energy which can interfere when we talk about creating new things in life by the use of our thoughts. What it comes down to is, our belief is our driving force, the belief in a thought. A second thought that replaces a first thought can be seen as an interference. Now the question that remains is, how is the strength of our thought measured? Without a doubt, by our emotions. More about that in a minute. The process of creation and our divine power to manifest the things we want is something that should fascinate all of us. It's who we are. Our personal thoughts are responsible for every experience we've already had during this lifetime. All opposite forms of energy that have been separated in the past return to the state of oneness sooner or later, and most of the time over and over again. This can be seen throughout the entire universe if we pay attention to it or if we open our eyes and see how history repeats itself in a certain form. The balance of life and the cycles are always there, just like the cycle of night and day, and just like the rotation of the earth that creates two balanced sides with similar weather patterns, geographical similarities and so on. The interesting thing is, in each cycle, there's always a special event right after a sort of energy peak is reached. For example, the cycles of the moon, the energy buildup and release of pressure of a volcano, the warm and cold winds creating tornadoes, the movement during sexual intercourse, emotional shifts going up and down, times of war followed by times of peace, breathing in and out, the cycle of life and death, leaves growing and falling, the increasing power of solar flares and the energy release that follows, the way steam is formed, electric charge by movement, the beating of a heart, the coming and going of ice ages, weather patterns, seasons come and go, pole shifts, empires rise and fall, new life, evolution and extermination, and so on. While observing the movement of two opposite forms of energy, what could be seen as the behavior of all life, we see that the movement follows a cycle while the energy of both opposites keeps increasing until this special moment or event takes place. This event could be seen as the end of a cycle, the experience, the moment of creation, the manifestation of the thought, the oneness, the point of understanding, the knowing. The universal manifestation theory says that humans have the divine power of thought to create events. We're able to bend time and space until certain thought is manifested into physical reality. Just like life's able to create new physical elements and experiences, so can we. We're always creating, with each thought. That's how everything around us is invented. Each thought creates not one, but two emotions, two opposite emotions. These emotions are both created at a point in time between the thought and the manifestation of that thought. This to maintain the balance of life. Alpha and Omega, Yin and yang, the one cannot exist without the other. We cannot label something good or bad before we have something to compare it to. Everything would just be if there's no opposite to compare it to. There wouldn't be experience. The human race is born with the language of emotions. That's our real language. The problem is, people aren't taught to pay attention to emotions and emotional frequencies, only to spoken and written words. Our ability to speak is only there to describe our emotional states, to express ourselves. We're doing that. We are convinced that others won't understand us if we don't speak. The physical reality of a thought becomes manifested at the point in time when the emotional strength of both opposite emotions can no longer increase. At that moment in time, the two opposites come together and create an event, the manifestation of the first thought. More specific, the event gives a person an experience of the requested emotion that was called by the first thought. An event only takes place when the cycle towards the manifestation isn't interrupted by a larger second thought, a new belief. For example, when the emotion behind a thought is happiness, sadness is also created before the thought becomes reality. By lack of knowledge, people intend to create new beliefs during the manifestation process of a first thought, for example when sadness or disappointment shows up. Belief is the driving force to manifest thoughts into reality, the force that brings the two opposite and increasing emotions to the point of creation, to the event. When belief in a thought is changed during the manifestation process, during the energy buildup of both opposite emotions, the process stops and a new thought is created. A new thought based on a new belief. A new cycle replaces the original one. This new thought also creates two new opposite emotions. For example, a person says the following: I give up, I tried everything. In this case, a new bad thought is created and the belief in the first thought is completely dropped. This means that this second thought is now the new first thought, but this time, it's based on negative emotions, based on a negative belief. Two new opposite emotions will be felt during the new manifestation process. The only difference is that the manifestation process is now leading towards a negative event, a negative experience. This is exactly how people get in a downward spiral to depression and unhappiness. We can interrupt the manifestation process of a good thought over and over again by replacing it with a negative thought. There is a time period between the thought and the manifestation of that thought that allows us to experience both emotional states, the positive and negative emotion. The emotional shifts that occur during this time period are perfectly normal, but people intend to see them as random experiences, just because they're not aware of the fact that both emotions are triggered by one thought and that they show up and increase in strength towards the manifestation of a thought. When we see this bigger picture, we'll understand that every bad emotion has its purpose, and that everything's in perfect balance. When we realize how physical manifestations are brought into our lives, we'll start to understand that all negative experiences on our path have to be there and that negative emotions have to be felt in order to get to the manifestation of a positive thought. We can't cheat on life. The bigger our dreams, the more fears and sadness we'll have to experience. Bad experiences are necessary if a person wants to know what joy or peace feels like. When people think, an emotion is created instantly. Later on, depending on the amount of time between the thought and the manifestation of that thought, the opposite of that emotion will also show up. Both emotions will then increase in strength towards the manifestation of the thought, following an up and down emotion effect. These are the emotion shifts that we all recognize. Both emotions can't be felt at the same time, so they show up and disappear one after the other, going on and off in a cycle towards the manifestation of a thought. It's almost like an increasing form of pressure. Emotions get bigger and bigger till the event occurs. Bigger waves are created when more water returns to the ocean. Warm water feels warmer when your hands are ice cold. The bigger the opposites, the bigger the experience. Time isn't that important because it's life itself that will decide when the time is right to manifest something. That's the perfection of life and we cannot touch that. For example, a person says he wants to be a millionaire, but he also said to be a great piano player. Then life itself, or some people would call it God, could know that this person would never play the piano again if he became a millionaire first. It's not up to us to control the growing process of an apple tree that we've planted. Life itself will do everything to make sure that apples grow on that tree. So having our priorities set is important. Otherwise it might seem as if life's cheating on us while it's actually doing everything perfectly. Time and space will bend towards all manifestations of all thoughts in our past. Not only that, life will also make sure that all positive and negative emotion shifts fit our lives perfectly. If we want big changes in our lives, we'll have to experience powerful emotion shifts, good and bad ones. This knowledge can already be found in many famous words. There's more truth in famous quotes and artists' lyrics than you think. When you're going through hell, keep going. Sir Winston Churchill. We'll literally have to feel like there's nothing left of us before we can rise like a skyscraper. I'd like to thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. For more information, download the ebook on the website. Please share this knowledge if you think it contains truth.